It's not even controversial anymore.
People know in Florida their freedoms are going to be respected.
Miranda, hey. I'm going to see you in a week in the flesh. I'm very excited about that.
Me too.
That's it? Nothing else?
I'm actually extremely excited. I just didn't want to be so extra.
Oh, okay. That's all right. Very excited. We're all in wedding fever mode.
Yes.
All right. Some Ron DeSantis stories. There is, of course, renewed news about, new COVID booster, maybe more effective with the variants. Well, Ron DeSantis and Florida's top health officials say not so fast.
Yeah, they do. I mean, DeSantis was a pretty big supporter of the vaccines during the thick of the pandemic, but he kind of retracted on that once he kind of started to realize how they weren't really doing what they were promised to do. So he basically said, I refuse to let the CDC use Florida residents as guinea pigs for another untested, unverified booster. So him and top health officials are basically telling Floridians to not get it if they're under the age of 65.
Yeah, I mean, and they're definitely warning against it. I don't know. I feel two ways about this. I don't want the government telling me to get it. I don't want the government telling me not to get it. I just want the government to say, hey, here's the best information we have. I want to be able to trust that that information isn't, politically skewed. And then I want to make a decision for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no harm can ever come out of caution and educating yourself on something, no matter what it is. So I do think that him kind of coming with that foot forward first might make a lot of people second guess the idea of getting it and maybe do their own research. But you're right. You don't want the government to be like, don't do this either, or do this. It feels very leading either way. So
yeah, everything around it feels kind of political. But I mean, they're right in the sense that we were sold a bill of goods on the first COVID vaccine that did not turn out to be true. And I got it. I regret getting it because I just don't think in hindsight that I needed it. And I don't think that we knew enough about it to sort of rush to it. So I think it's good to urge caution and let people make those decisions for themselves. But certainly if you're vulnerable, that might be something that you want to look into further and consider. All right. There's some dueling stories about neo-Nazis in Florida that to me just speaks to the absolute ridiculousness of the media right now. But so the first one, Florida has it's a fairly new public nuisance law that has to do with kind of, how do I put this, signage on property that's not yours being considered a public nuisance. And it's getting attention because there was a neo-Nazi arrested over signage that he put up.
Yeah, correct. So just outside of Orlando, a neo-Nazi who is an outright forward member of a bunch of different neo-Nazi groups put up some swastikas and other hateful messages on an overpass over the highway outside of Orlando. And I'm sure everybody's seen something or another on an overpass over the highway. And that's kind of specifically what this law was put in place to do, is kind of really goes at hate speech towards religious groups, because that's something we see more in Florida than anything, is a lot of the Nazi stuff and the anti-Semitic kind of comments. So it is nice to see that law actually, worked out. And this guy he got arrested. There's two more other people that were responsible for the same hate messages that they're looking for. But it does go to show that Florida does have things in place to stop hate speech and stop situations from this from happening in public places.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things on overpasses. Can't say I've ever seen someone put up a flyer with a swastika on it. But my understanding of this, because people always get into, okay, where is the First Amendment right start and stop? My understanding is it basically protects against someone putting up signage of any kind on property that's not theirs without consent, which makes a lot of sense. Don't put something up on property that's not yours.
It does. And it's as much as public property, some people might feel entitled to that. You still need to get permission if you want to air your opinion on public property. So I think it just kind of gives them an end game for this. Obviously it should go without saying, but people still do it. They're still going to stick signs on lawns and do things like that. But at least there puts some sort of consequence in place for people who do not have that common sense to not touch things that aren't theirs. So
yeah, I liken that to kind of graffiti. I mean, sure, you can take a sign down, but, graffiti artists in Seattle, they're like, well, you can remove it. It's just ridiculous stuff. But I also think with just anything on an overpass, it's so distracting. When I'm on an interstate driving under and I've got somebody waving signs, whether it's political signs, or I don't care if it's a sign that's love each other. You're looking up and you're not looking at the road. So that is a public nuisance. in my opinion. Now, meanwhile, while the state of Florida is arresting neo-Nazis for putting hate speech up on public overpasses, Rolling Stone really thinks that Florida is just a bastion, neo-Nazi loving state.
Yeah, they put this article out today that says neo-Nazis gloat as Florida becomes a magnet for hate. And it is just appalling to me as a Floridian, first of all, because I happen to think that this state is not what people think it is. But this is kind of in response to a neo-Nazi get-together that they had outside of Orlando at the beginning of the year, the beginning of the month. Only 50 people, and I know there should be 0, but 50 people showed up to this meet and greet of neo-Nazis. And the guy that got arrested was actually at this same convention of people who got together. But that is their First Amendment right, as despicable and obnoxious as it is. They do have a right to gather and to, protest, or I don't know. It's not even a protest at that point. I don't know what it is, just shouting in the street. Yeah. But they can do that, but they can't put their messages all over other people's property.
Yeah, it's all weird because the idea that, first of all, it's just Rolling Stone trying to dunk on DeSantis. I mean, it's very predictable. Yeah. But Florida is far from the only state that has neo-Nazis and neo-Nazi groups there. In fact, Washington State has had issues with that in the past, and we're a very deep blue progressive state. So I don't think that, what is a state supposed to do? Be like, let's check everyone's, internet activity and everything before they move into our state to make sure. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so it's just, again, it's so transparent, trying to dunk on DeSantis. I haven't seen any statistics about neo-Nazis per capita of every state in the union. And if you can show me that Florida has more self-professed neo-Nazis per capita than every state in the union, then we can have a conversation about it.
Yeah, well, maybe they feel more safe to gather here because of the rhetoric that's been put out about our state. But at the end of the day, I'm here to combat that all day long and remind you that we do have laws that help prevent people from spewing their obnoxious opinions in public places.
Yeah, so. And you do have a lot of wonderful people in Florida who are not neo-Nazis, who love other human beings, regardless of the color of their skin. And this is all just giving the rest of you a bad name. All right, Miranda. Well, we shall see you here next week for my wedding. Maybe, who knows, a little in-person Florida report. We shall see. Thank you. See you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
It's not even controversial anymore.
People know in Florida their freedoms are going to be respected.